Welcome to the Korea Pro Podcast, your weekly guide to understanding the most pressing and complicated developments shaping South Korea. We're your hosts, Jeongmin Kim,
John Lei,
and Junha Park of Korea Pro.
Go beyond headlines as we explain not just what happened, but also what really matters and why it matters.
If you monitor South Korea for work or just trying to keep up, you're in the right place.
This is the Korea Pro Podcast. Hello, listeners. Welcome back to Korea Pro Podcast. Today, it's been a while. Everybody in the gang is here, Junha, John, and me, and we're recording Thursday, February 19th. And it's almost 5 p.m. And around 50 minutes ago, we finally got the verdict and sentencing for former President Yoon and the accomplices. And the ruling is a life sentence for Mr. Yoon, and for others, around 18 to 32 years in prison.
Mm-hmm.
Can you walk us through it?
Right, so the former defense minister Kim Yong-hyun, he was signaled as an accomplice and also a key operator within the plan for martial law. He was sentenced to 30 years imprisonment. Do Sang-won, the former defense intelligence commander, whose notebook was in the headlines for...
The Loteria guy.
Yeah, so reportedly instigating an inter-Korean conflict, also planning the arrest of prominent politicians. They dismissed that the notebook was something that can be proved as his and also proved to be a significant part within the plans for martial law. However, he was also deemed an accomplice, and they're at the start of the planning and quite a number of detailed incidents where he was talking with the former defense minister Kim Yong-hyun, so he was sentenced to 18 years. Mm-hmm. And the other members who were the accomplices, I believe it was 3 or 4 other accomplices, they were given 18 to no years in prison.
Right, because some of them, it wasn't established that they intentionally joined the planning phase of up until the martial law. But let's not, it was like an hour-long verdict, so we can't go into every single detail, but let's go through a couple of most important stuff. One is the special prosecutors initially claimed they basically requested death penalty for Yoon, saying that there was an intention for extended rule, basically a dictatorship. Did the court accept this?
No, the court denied it. They said that Yoon and his accomplices were not planning that far ahead.
Mm-hmm. They weren't smart enough or shrewd enough to actually plan that much.
Translation, you're too dumb to actually try to really intentionally destabilize and erode democracy.
Dictatorship is pretty hard, man. Mm-hmm. That was, I think, their message here.
Mm-hmm. And also the presiding judge, Ji Gi-yeon, he also mentioned that Yoon's age, along with the former defense minister Kim's age, as being a deciding factor in their sort of dumbness, as John pointed out.
I think they were mentioning that to consider into the verdict to a certain extent, but let's get back to that.
For some reason, the word that enters my brain right now is dotard.
That's a North Korean language that Kim Yo-jong used against Donald Trump in 2018 and 2019. Next in line, one of the most important things was actually the intention. So when it comes to the verdict itself, the reason why it was so long was because of the social, public sentiment in South Korea regarding this. So he had to explain for 20 minutes why it was legitimate to investigate a sitting president at the time and afterwards as well. So that we don't really have to go into. But then he also mentioned in South Korean legal system, especially criminal system, the life imprisonment and death penalty, it's very rare. And that in criminal cases, the results are important when it comes to deciding the verdict. Aside from the 내란죄 coup, the insurrection, because that action itself can cause certain verdict, the presiding judge mentioned. And related to this, he explained, which was, I think, the deciding factor in having almost everybody guilty, was the intention to suspend or paralyze the National Assembly.
Right, so the court was saying that while the act of declaring martial law does not automatically constitute insurrection...
because it's a presidential power.
Exactly, so it becomes criminal if intended, as you mentioned, to paralyze constitutional order and also constitutional institutions. So in Yoon's case, the court explained that the December 3rd martial law decree amounted to insurrection because it centered on deploying troops to the National Assembly.
And also, the mobilization of the military was one of the big factors as well, especially when it comes to Kim Yong-hyun, 30-year, and Yoon Suk Yeol life sentence. because they said it wasn't clear whether or not they have decided yet, like when they will withdraw the military. They didn't think it through. So this means, if you interpret it, they could have extended the period that the military was going to be there at the National Assembly trying to arrest people. And so because of this, the court saw that there was a intention and goal to make sure that the parliament doesn't function. And also they said that even when there is martial law, emergency martial law, certain constitutional, institutions, fundamental activities, their function has to be maintained, such as the legislature. And because of that, Yoon is getting a life sentence. Overall, what is your main take? What is the risk going forward after this in South Korean political scene, and what will be this impact for the Conservative Party?
Well, we've already seen reactions from the ruling Democratic saying that from the DP leader, he just said a couple minutes ago that the court's decision to input a life imprisonment for former President Yoon is a step back from what people called for during the protests. That's their position. The Conservative Party, the People Power Party, or however long that name will hold, they haven't actually stated their position as of yet. They are still yet to state their position on whether they see the former president as still a member of their party spiritually and also physically.
And the interesting part for me in the verdict was the presiding judge trying to explain why there is such thing as self-coup historically, like giving Roman example
Right,
and the
he gave an
Charles
example
First
of English
being
Civil War.
executed.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he sort of started off with that and sort of explaining, look, a president can also be charged for coup, self-coup. And then he sort of went on to say, well, it's pretty tempting in certain countries and certain histories. And then he started laying off like Latin America example, South Africa example. And then he mentioned the advanced countries as well.
Weird, I didn't hear any reference to January 6th.
That was interesting, right? When he was mentioning advanced countries, it's difficult to find them because institutions work so that tensions de-escalate. Well, next in line, let's move away from the domestic politics topic and move to trade and import-export. South Korea slipped in U.S. import rankings from 4th to 9th place in 2025.
Well, yeah, that's basically it. What we saw throughout the year in 2025 was the imposition of tariffs. And so, yeah, South Korea is doing well when it comes to semiconductors and chips because, as we've said so many times in this podcast, chip prices have gone up, yada, yada, yada. But all the other sectors, they're not doing well. And so, yeah, especially when it comes to automobiles and steel. And so all other sectors in South Korea, the exports to the United States has really fallen. And so we're at 9th place now instead of 4th place compared to 2024.
But is this based on price?
No, this is based on the total exports. And so if we're talking about current account surpluses or trade deficits, South Korea is doing really well on that front.
Because of the chip price.
Because of the chip prices having gone up by 300 to 700%.
Yeah.
So in that regard, South Korea is doing okay. But again, when it comes to actual goods, when it comes to actual quantities, South Korea is not doing that well. And so if some people are thinking that Donald Trump would not be so mad at South Korea because we're exporting less now, Donald Trump doesn't really think that way. He thinks of current account deficits. And so...
Does he? Does he think?
Well, he always talks about a trade deficit when it comes to trade, right? He talks about the trade imbalances. And so, yeah, South Korea is still going to be way up there when it comes to allies who are free riding on the United States goodwill.
You're getting better with the impression a little bit.
You need to warn me when you do that.
Now, Jeongmin, you were not here last week because you were in Germany. Why were you in Germany?
I was attending the Munich Security Conference again this year.
Again.
I was very gratefully invited as older Munich young leader.
Oh my God, you're the older
Yeah, I'm the
one.
older Munich young leader.
You're ancient.
Yeah, so it was different because last time I went there, all the programs were set for me. But this time around, I could really go to like Korea-specific or Indo-Pacific-specific China-Taiwan related stuff.
Could you tell us why?
Because I was the only Korean this year at Munich Security Conference. This is like unheard of like one country having only one person attending and not really a government representative. There was no National Security Office folks, no MOFA, not even DG levels, no defense ministry. When Koizumi-san from, Japanese defense minister was there with the entire team, all of the Japanese leading think tanks in all of the roundtables and all of the main sessions, representing the supply chain issue in a Japanese perspective or Indo-Pacific perspective. China there, Wang Yi was there. Wang Yi's team was there. Former trade minister was there. So everybody was there talking about how, because what U.S. was doing, Rubio was there, by the way, reiterating what Vance was sort of saying last year. But now sort of adding, Western civilization should rebuild itself. And then there were a bunch of Asian folks sort of either working together or lobbying for their own, national interests, because there are so many European, American, Asian, Indo-Pacific, like everywhere, defense contractors, like space engineering companies, VCs, everything, being there, networking, lobbying, eating, getting drunk together, playing foosball, but no Koreans were there. So I was actually quite frustrated to see that.
So you heard it here, folks. Jeongmin Kim, the executive director of Korea Risk Group, was in Munich representing the entirety of South Korea.
Well, but that was a frustrating part because I cannot represent it because I'm not the government. So I was there to observe and maybe, explain my personal thoughts about certain topics. But I could see that that South Korea was actually really missing out not being there, like not even DG level, because there were so many supply chain related issues, critical mineral related issues, hard security issues as well, like non-proliferation. And North Korea wasn't mentioned once in any of the things that I went. But the change from last year, which South Korean officials really missed out this year, is that a lot of European partners gave South Korea a really positive shout out as a like-minded partner, someone they have to work together with. For instance, Polish delegation, they feel like South Korea is one of their best friends, sharing the same agony now, being mentioned as a model ally in the national defense strategy by the U.S., and also U.S. officials calling out South Korea from their perspective positively as non-NATO ally that's paying more for the first time. And yeah, there was a lot of takeaway that South Korean officials could have gotten from the off-record, on-record meetings there, with a lot of bilots going on with Wang Yi, for instance, but they missed out.
Well, to be absolutely fair to the South Korean officials who went out there, we had the Lunar New Year holidays last week. They wanted to go on break, spend time with their families, do the really important stuff.
Yeah, because South Korea is only Asian nation that observes Lunar New Year. Like Chinese, they don't really do Lunar New Year, right?
Well, obviously, yes. They call it the Chinese New Year in China. We call it the Lunar New Year. So, yes, technically, that's right. And that's what I'm sticking with.
Week ahead, the Brazilian president will be here with the first lady that went very viral on social media for wearing hanbok and taking this fabulous photo.
Cultural appropriation.
What might be on their agenda list next week?
They might hug it out and bro it out because, the narrative is really that Lula and Lee Jae-myung, they both come from similar working class backgrounds. And so that's got to be their, icebreaker, I guess. So how old were you when you were working in a factory? Oh, me? I was 11 or whatever it is. So I guess that's what we're going to be talking about.
Yeah, but I thought it was a bit weird to see South Korean local media headlines all saying the same thing. 소년공 출신 Lula, the factory boy, ex-factory boy Lula meets ex-factory boy Lee. Is that the really only headline that they could come up with?
Well, to be fair, what do we really know about Brazil anyway?
Oh, but there must be a lot of things that we need to discuss with them, like memorandums, deals.
We could also be discussing trying to get into various free trade agreements with the Latin American countries, of which Brazil is a very big player in that entire
And
subcontinent.
there's a big Korean community in Brazil as well.
Huge Korean communities, and I know for a fact that GM Korea also has a lot of factories and partners and subsidiaries in Brazil as well. So they could be talking a lot about trying to secure supply chains, especially with the trade barriers going up all around the world. But nah, why do any of that?
Don't just talk about personal history, man. And also, we are looking forward to seeing the People Power Party rebranding. What are the reported 5 options that they are considering for the party name, Junha?
Well, there's a lot of liberty, free, and Republican involved.
Some
within
Democratic.
Some Democratic.
There's LDP.
Right, so I can't really pick a side. But anyways, when you look at the history of how the PPP and its sort of forefathers, as to speak, changed their names, it was always for electoral gain. It was always they were framing it under the fact that they're going to change their identity, they're going to change their framing of certain issues, but it was always the same people within the ranks.
And if we go along with the trends of the different kinds of names that we've seen over the past few decades, the names have gotten dumber and dumber. And so we can expect something even dumber to come up now.
I actually before talked about 진보당, 진짜 보수당, so like real conservative party, but sounding like progressive party.
Yeah, I love that name.
I should have maybe
Trademark it. Yes,
yeah.
now.
Maybe I should do it. Yeah, now. But like it's interesting though. One of the names that are considered is 함께하는 공화, together with Republican. And I think it's trying to mirror 더불어민주당 because 더불어 is also together and sort of inclusive, non-factionalized.
Doesn't really have the same ring though.
It does not. 함께하는 공화, so 함공? It's weird, right? So we'll see next week what gets the final vote.
And all of this information will be sent to email inboxes by Monday at 2 p.m. via the Week Ahead newsletter. So if you'd like to know more, subscribe. Bye-bye.
And that's a wrap. Thanks for tuning in.
If you want to know more, sign up for our daily executive briefings. We'll brief you on all you need to know from the past 24 hours and why it matters, delivered to your inbox every morning.
If you want to stay ahead of the curve, sign up for Korea Pro to get a full package of insights, from daily expert analysis to profiles, month in review, week ahead, and more.
And until next time, I'm Jeongmin Kim.
I'm Junho Park.
And I'm John Lee, and we'll see you next time on the Korea Pro Podcast.